Hi guys, welcome to the video. Salt here. Today we're going to be going over the Warframe Baruuk Prime. Now, just a little bit of a disclaimer about myself. I'm an LR4 with over 5,000 hours in the game, and my goal is to provide builds and guides for players to have an easier time in Warframe. So Baruuk Prime was suggested to us by commenter Caleb Scott, and that's why we're doing it today. We have the top commenter of the last video, BBSK Studio, and the first commenter of the last video, Montero U. And if we go over here, we have a recent supporter of Johnny. Thank you so much, Johnny. It's greatly appreciated. Okay, before we go in the build, I just wanted to say that I started my research into Baruuk this morning knowing very little bit about him. I had basically just leveled him up to level 30, and I kind of forgot about him, and he's been on the back burner for a really, really long time. However, this morning, I started my research, and about 9 hours later, I emerged from my cave, eyes still adjusting to the light, having scoured the deep and dark places of Baruuk during that time. I then asked a close friend to review the build I had created, to which his response was, "Yes, chef," because I am the goddamn cook in this kitchen. And what I had slow cooked over that 9 hours was the most diabolical Baruuk build this world has ever seen. Now, I won't lie. There will be naysayers and there will be doubters. And that's okay. They can play their fisting builds that they found on Warframe with each other. But for those of you who will stay, you will ascend to a greater plane of existence today. Now, for generations, legends have told that Revenant was the pinnacle of level cap brain deadery. But on this day, I, Salt, bring to you the new pinnacle, the new mountaintop of Baruuk. And now, I speak to those Revenant mains out there who are likely hiding in trash cans at this point. Will you ascend with us to the next level of brain deadery? Or will you stay as number 2, both in numerical value and the embodiment of human excrement? That's the question. Okay, let's get into the build here. So, Baruuk Prime, we're going to go over the abilities first. Let me get my little paper that has the abilities on it. All right, so let's go over his passive first here. So each projectile dodged, each enemy lulled, each enemy disarmed, erodes restraint, and as Baruuk's restraint is diminished, he becomes up to 50% more resistant to damage. So that's really nice. That's good for a damage reduction build. Our build is not a damage reduction build, actually. Our build is a shield gating build. It's a good shield gating build. I hate shield gating builds, but this is a good shield gating build. It's still a nice passive, though. If you wanted to kind of make your own thing and do damage reduction, it's a cool passive for damage reduction. Okay, the 1, Elude. Enter a stance that gives Baruuk 100% dodge chance while not attacking. So you can't attack, and that's how you get your dodge chance. If Baruuk attacks, there is a 0.2 second delay before Elude reactivates. Now, there is a key sentence in the wiki that basically our entire build revolves around, and it's this sentence right here. Charging a gun does not count as attacking. That's the key sentence right there. And I put it to the test because I also wanted to see if a glaive would work. Charging a glaive, does that count as attacking? And unfortunately it does, so glaives will not work well with this. But charging a gun does not count as attacking. So that would be any kind of weapon that has a normal charge attack that you would think, but also bows. So the drawing back of the bow also counts as charging. Alrighty. Lull is next. Expand a calming wave over an area. Enemies will gradually slow, then fall asleep. Enemies that awaken while still inside a lull field will fall back asleep. That's really nice. Our build is invincible, so we don't really need lull for ourselves, but for allies it's really nice. It's a good supporting ability. The 3, Desolate Hands. Summon a protective ring of energy daggers. Grants Baruuk 10% damage reduction per dagger. Daggers will seek enemies in sight and within X meters. They launch one by one and disarm enemies and explode for blast damage. The max damage reduction from daggers is 90%, which is achievable through 9 daggers. And strength will increase the dagger amount that you get. As you see here, because we don't go strength on our build, we have a low dagger amount. And it's because our Baruuk is invincible. We don't really need any of the damage reduction. We don't really need this ability for ourselves. The only reason we would cast Desolate Hands is to give it to other people, because that's the next part of this. So launches daggers at allies and gives them the same buff and effect. And each ally can carry 50% of what Baruuk can carry. So like, let's say your modded amount was 10 daggers. That means your allies can carry 5 daggers. And daggers that shoot off out of you to allies don't take a dagger away from you. It's kind of like a free dagger. So that's really cool. Again, this is a buff more for your allies than you because you're invincible. There are ways to make this valid on our build because we actually have quite a few play slots on this build. So you could give yourself more strength and make this more of a helpy helperton kind of an ability for your allies. But again, you don't need it for yourself. All right, and the 4, and what we're subsuming out here, this is normally Baruuk's little fisting ability, but we're actually going to subsume that out, and we're going to use Larva. But you don't actually need to use Larva. You could use any of a grouping ability. So there's Snare is really nice, Larva is really nice, Mag's Pull is really nice. There's probably a couple of others that I'm missing out there. I like Larva myself the most, but I was really going back and forth between Larva and then Snare. All right, so again, it's just a grouping ability. You shoot it, it makes this like little meatball that kind of sucks dudes up, and that's about it. All right, so we have Other Salt out in the field right now. He's going to be showing these abilities off for us. So we're going to go ahead and switch right over to him. Are you ready, guys? Here we go. Hey, guys. Other Salt here. I'm going to be showing off the abilities for Baruuk. So we're going to start with the 1, which is Elude. To show this off, I'm going to be spawning in 20 Exo Ghost Tag officers on Steel Path, level 225, with their AI turned on. So we're going to go ahead and simulate that. I'm going to press my 1, which is Elude. And yeah, I'm just going to kind of walk right in the middle of them and let them shoot me. And as you see here, I'm immune to attacks. As long as I don't attack. If I attack, I will become vulnerable to being attacked. Okay. Now, this is what our build is revolving around, is this ability right here. And let's say I just use a regular weapon. I don't know, I have the Sepulchrum here. You can basically use whatever other weapon. And I'm just going to show what happens if you use a regular weapon. Oh, I'm down. And I got taken down very quickly. All right, let me go ahead and revive. And I'll show you what it looks like when you use the appropriate type of weapon that you should be using, which is a slow charging weapon. Because charging an attack does not count as attacking. And so I'm still invulnerable as long as I am not attacking. When I shoot it, I'm vulnerable for a very brief period, to which my shield gate hits, and then I'm back to being invulnerable. So a weapon that is slower and has a charged attack is the appropriate way to be using this build. All right, now we're going to go over the 2, which is going to be Lull. Lull is an expanding wave that enemies are going to be slowed briefly, and then they're going to go to sleep. So let's put these guys to sleep here. Alrighty, so that's more of a crowd control ability, so you could still support your team. You yourself don't really need it because you're basically invulnerable, but it's a good support ability for your team. The 3 is going to be Desolate Hands. Now, the way we have our build built out currently, Desolate Hands we don't really get much effect out of, but this is the one where when you press your 3, it's going to summon those little daggers around you, and those daggers are going to give you damage reduction, which we don't really need, but they can also go to your allies and give them damage reduction as well. And they can also shoot off and hit enemies and disarm them. Without strength, you don't get that many daggers. I think we get 3. because we don't have any strength in our build. But there are ways to add strength on this build, and Salt will go over that when we go back to the Orbiter. If you want to make use of 3 as a support ability. But again, you don't need it, so it would be for your teammates. All right, and then finally 4 is the one we're subsuming over, and we're going to be using Nidus's Larva. However, you could pretty much use any grouping ability that you want. In fact, I was going back and forth a bunch between Larva and then Korra's Ensnare. I like both of them a lot. I like that Larva, you don't actually have to target an enemy, but Ensnare is still really powerful. So let me just press my 4 to show what Larva is. So I press that, and it sucks everyone in. And then because I'm using an AoE weapon, it combos really well with it. So that is Baruuk and his abilities. I'm going to make sure I wave to Salt. That way he knows we're done. All right, we're back here. Great job, Other Salt. You are truly an American hero. Okay, let's go into the Baruuk Prime build here. Okay, and then the only thing you need on this build to make it level cap viable is this right here. That's it, 2 mods. That's it. This is a level cap build, if anyone's interested, right here. Everything else on this build just makes it more comfortable and better, but this is the only thing that is required, which is a little bit ridiculous, and I think why this build is possibly beating out those Revenant builds now for the top Brain Dead build. So, okay, let's go back to the main build here, and let's go over these mods. So we have 3 mods for range. The reason 2 is key is because 2 lets us achieve a 360-degree invulnerability on Elude. So Elude is actually directional based, but the more range you have, it can go to completely 360 around you. And that requires overextended and stretch or overextended and auger reach. Now we're going to go past that and put even more range mods on because pretty much everything scales on range here, especially our little grouping ability Larva, which is going to be really nice. So we go overextended, we go stretch, we go auger reach, and in fact, we're even going to go with another one in the Exilus slot, which is Cunning Drift. There's probably a better pick over Cunning Drift, but I'll get to that when we get to this slot. So yeah, 3 range mods here. I'm going to skip Prime Flow because this is actually an optional slot. You don't really even need Prime Flow. And we're going to go to these 3 on the bottom. So we have Catalyzing Shields, Fast Deflection, and Vigilante Vigor. The way this build works is you're going to charge your bow. It doesn't matter what bow you're using, just some kind of big, heavy-hitting, slower bow. So like the Brahma, the Proboscis Cernos, there's some weird bow from Duviri I can never remember the name of, the Nadaruk, any of those things. So you go to charge it, you're still invulnerable, and then you go to shoot it, and for a very brief second, you'll take some damage, which is completely fine because your shield gate kicks in, and then you go to shoot again, and by then you should get some shields back and be ready to shield gate once again. And to help that process, we have Catalyzing Shields, Fast Deflection, and Vigilante Vigor. Fast Deflection and Vigilante Vigor, these are mostly important for the shield recharge delay. This makes it so that those shields start up super, super quick. And they recharge super quick too, so you can get a bigger shield gate. So Catalyzing Shields, Fast Deflection, and Vigilante Vigor. Okay. The next slot here, Umbra Vitality. So I don't know if I actually said this already, or Other Salt said this, I'm not really sure. Our build is invincible, it's invulnerable, except for AoE status damage. AoE status damage can kill us. And so we need to take that into account, and we need to protect ourselves against it. And there are a few things we're doing to protect ourselves from AoE status damage. The main thing, and something we'll go over eventually, is our pet. Our pet is the biggest thing that's protecting us from AoE status damage. But we can take other measures too, because the pet's not perfect. The pet will screw up sometimes, or you'll get multiple instances of status damage, and he won't be able to kind of negate all of it. So for that reason, we need a pool of health to be able to take a few ticks of status damage, so we don't just insta-die. You know, you can't, if you're running around with only 300 health and you get hit with like fire or toxic or something like that, it's going to be like 1 or 2 ticks and you're dead. So we give ourselves Umber Vitality. This is going to give us about 250 to 260 health. It's not great, but it's something. And then for an even better increase, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit to the Arcane here. We're using Arcane Blessing. So this, when it is fully stacked, it's going to give you about 1,200 health, which is great. That's way better than Vitality, except this takes a while to stack. So you do need to like start with a little bit of something, just in case you get hit with an early heat eczemas. So Umber Vitality plus Arcane Blessing will give you a nice, comfortable pool of health to be able to take a few ticks of status damage. That get through, because again, your pet is going to be negating a lot of it. Okay, so now we go back to this Prime Flow slot. This is a play slot. You can pretty much use whatever you want here. Our build is not very energy hungry. So like I was saying, this is a Shieldgate build, but this is a good Shieldgate build. I normally hate Shieldgate builds because damage reduction is just always better than Shieldgate unless you are doing level cap. If you're doing level cap, you have to Shieldgate. But if you have a choice, if you're not doing level cap, I'm picking a damage reduction build all day long because Shieldgating builds require you to spam abilities, spam augur mods. You have to have energy generation somehow because you're spamming. Our build doesn't spam. Our build doesn't even really need energy. So that's why Prime Flow is not actually needed. So if you don't want to go with Primed Flow, you could go with... There's some interesting picks I'm going to bring up here. Vigorous Swap. Vigorous Swap is unequipped. You get 165% damage for 3 seconds. So this is a holster style mod. You just do an FF switch. In between each shot, you do an FF switch, and then you get a 165% damage. It's very easy to do that. It just is kind of like muscle memory. If you don't play a lot of holster stuff, which personally I don't, so I always screw it up. But if you play a lot of holster type weapons, like the Lado Vandal in Karnan, for instance, you'll be used to doing this. And so Vigorous Swap is pretty easy to do. And that is a good pick over Flow, because again, Flow is not super needed. Flow just makes it more comfy, but you don't need Flow at all. The other option over Flow would be Natural Talent. Natural Talent just give you some more casting speed. You don't really need a casting speed, but why the hell not, you know? You have a play slot. Maybe you want to use that. The other option over Flow, like we were saying before, Desolate Hands needs a little bit more strength to actually make it a more supporting ability, because only 3 little daggers are going to shoot out immediately and you're going to kind of lose them all. So you could go with a strength mod, like a very powerful strength mod here, probably Blind Rage or something like that. And that would make your 3 more of a helpy helperton ability. But for you yourself, you don't really need to use your 3. Your 2 and your 3 are basically more for your allies than they are for you. You are mostly a 1 and a 4 player. Your 2 is for support. And your 3, you're probably not going to cast unless you go with strength here in this slot. And that'll make you more of a helpy helperton. Yeah, that's pretty much the options for that slot. I'm going to go with Flow because I don't really care about the 3 too much. And I'm just going to play with the 1 and the 4. All right, in the Aura slot, we have a weird pick here too. This is a weird build. I'm telling you, it's a weird build. So in the Aura slot, I'm going to go with Sniper Scavenger. And let me explain why. So this build for Baruuk, you are purposely picking a slow, heavy-hitting charging weapon. So that would be like the Brahma, the Proboscis Cernos, the weird Duviri weapon, any of those big charging weapons, right? Or the Envoy, I think. Well, the Envoy's not really a charge weapon, but it is probably slow enough where your Shieldgate would hit in. And those big heavy weapons usually have ammo issues. Now, if it doesn't have an ammo issue, if let's say you're using the Nataruk, which is free ammo, of course you don't need Sniper Scavenger. You can pick whatever the hell you want there then. But most of the other weapons are going to have ammo issues, right? Like the Brahma has ammo issues. The Proboscis Cernos has ammo issues. So you pick Sniper Scavenger and you get some more ammo back. Bows are weird. Bows count as snipers for some weird reason. I guess they technically are. I don't know. Okay, in the Exilus slot, I'm going to go with Cunning Drift because I am a greedy bastard and I want even more range, even though we have way more than enough. But probably the better option would be Primed Surefooted here. just because you are going to be using big, heavy weapons that are charged shots, and most of those big, heavy weapons that are charged shots also have an AoE blast. And because of that, you could be knocking yourself all over the place. And you'll probably see me and my greedy ass with Cunning Drift knocking myself all over the place, but I think it's worth it because I want that extra 15 ability range. But so consider either Cunning Drift if you're greedy, or Primed Surefooted would also be really, really good. And it's probably the better pick in this slot, to be honest. Okay, and in the Arcane slot, we went over Blessing and it being kind of a cushion for us. And in the top Arcane, you can pick anything. Pick a damage Arcane, though. You don't really need anything for an Arcane, so why not just get more damage? So I like Arcane Adventure for the 45% critical chance, but maybe you like something else. Just pick some kind of Arcane that gives you more damage. All right, and that is the build for our Baruuk Prime. What I want to do now is I want to show some externals that are going to combo with Baruuk and this build. And we're going to do the Archon Shards first, and nothing is needed. Nothing in the Archon Shards are needed. I actually forced myself to put these on here because I'm a little bit OCD and I didn't like the empty slots. But nothing is needed for this build. You can put whatever you think is the most comfy. I have a single orange shard for regeneration of 7.5 shields when you kill an enemy with blast. I'm using the Brahma, which has blast, so this kind of makes sense, I guess. I'm also using 2 orange shards, which are gain 2 health per enemy killed with blast. So, and your max gain is 450 health. Again, I'm using a Brahma, which has blast, so this kind of makes sense. And in fact, if you use these 2 shards to give you 450 max health, so 900 max health altogether, you could probably go on your build and get rid of the Vitality mod. Maybe, because these do need to ramp up, but you probably could get rid of Vitality, and then you would have another play slot, because you don't need that much buffer. Your pet should remove most of the statuses. You don't need to have like 3,000 health of a buffer. If you want, you can. I'm going to have it, but you don't need it. And then in the other 2, I went with Effectiveness on Energy Orbs for no particular reason. We don't really need energy, but why the hell not? I didn't know what else to put here. I guess you could also do 2 for casting speed. But your 1 is a channeled ability, so you don't really need casting speed for that. And your 4, the one you pull enemies in, it would depend what you pick. I want to say Larva is like a one-handed, so I don't know if you need to have casting speed on it or not. I'm not really sure there. Let me know in the comments. I don't know if you need casting speed on Larva or not. So, but I went 2 with Effectiveness on Energy Orbs. But again, the Archon Shards, none of these are needed. Pick whatever the hell you want there. In fact, depending on the bow you pick, right? Like the bow I'm picking is the Brahma, which is a hybrid and crit bow. But let's say you went with the Proboscis Cernos, which is another bow similar to the Brahma, except it is a status bow. And for the Proboscis Cernos, you actually might want to consider going with a green shard and maybe doing some kind of an armor stripping build. That could be really sexy, especially like for level cap or something. Going with like 1 or 2 green shards, and then you have the red shards that give you status chance for your primary. That could be really good if you go with the Proboscis Cernos. So your Archon Shards may actually be dependent on what bow you decide on picking. Because mine is the Brahma with Blast, I'm going with this setup, but if I went with the Proboscis Cernos, I would likely have a very different Archon Shard setup. Okay, the primary, again, we went over. It needs to be a slow charging weapon. That way your shield gate has time to pick back up. It picks back up very quickly, but you just can't have like a machine gun, because it's not going to pick up in that time. It's got to be a slower charging weapon. So like, Brahma, Proboscis Cernos. There's probably other slow charging weapons that aren't bows that would work perfectly fine as well. So let me know in the comments what you would like to use with your Baruuk. For the secondary, I showed in the simulacrum the Sepulchrum sucks, so don't use a Sepulchrum. I feel like the Azima is pretty decent. The Azima is a utility pick. It has a utility build. I actually have a utility build video for the Azima, where you just alt-fire it, it shoots a little turret out, and the turret sits there for 30 seconds, spreading whatever the hell you want. I put viral on it, so it spreads viral all over. But you can also make it CC. You could put like electric or heat on it and make it like CC enemies. So the Azima, it's not a damage option. It's more of like a utility. You just pop it out and it spreads whatever you put on it. So I think that's pretty cool. That's a good option for Baruuk there. For the melee, I couldn't really find a melee that comboed super well, just because glaives, charging a glaive does count as attacking, and so you aren't invulnerable when you're charging a glaive. So I have the Zorus on here just because I was testing it. For an actual melee, I don't know really what would combo with Baruuk. Let me know if you could think of anything that would be something that you only press like once so that your shield gate has time to come up. Like, you have to press it once, and it has to do something meaningful. Ugh, I don't know if I can think of anything off the top of my head there, but maybe you guys can. Okay, in the Focus School slot, there's a few two-ish options here. You have Matarai, which is just a small passive damage increase. That's the one I'm going to go for, but it's pretty boring. It doesn't really do too much. You have Unairu, which is also an extremely small buff. It gives you 200 armor. We're not going for armor, so pretty much you just have your 200 and then your base armor, which only comes into effect when a status proc gets through and does some kind of health damage. So, which is not going to be often, but you could technically make a case for Unairu being okay as well. Everything else is kind of meh, unless you want to use their active abilities. If you want to use their active abilities, then there's a bunch of active abilities that are good for all 5 of these. Zeneric, though, most of them will not work because you have a channeled ability on here, and any kind of energy per second effect does not work when you have a channeled ability. And most of Zeneric's like energy gains are energy per seconds. So I feel like the best options are going to be Matarai and Unairu, although they're minor options. They're not really like huge benefits. Okay. And finally, in the pet slot, and this is an important slot here, because like we were saying, you're immune to damage except for some weird instances. And one of those weird instances is AoE status damage, right? Like fire Eximuses with their little rings, or like the infested toxic guys that kind of like run up to you and stuff. Well, that's where you have Worm Prime. And Worm Prime has a specific mod called Negate. So Sentinel prevents status effects from applying to its owner once every 5 seconds. So it's going to prevent those fire statuses, toxic statuses, electric statuses. I don't know, is there any AoE / statuses? Probably. But any kind of like of those statuses, Negate is going to get rid of. So your worm is going to be removing most of them, and then you have that health pool for anything that gets through by accident. Because, you know, your Sentinel's not perfect. Worm's not perfect. Don't judge him. All right, let's look at this worm build here. So we're going to start with the 2 survivability mods. We're going to have Enhanced Vitality for plus health and Calculated Redirection for plus shields. Why aren't we going with plus armor? It's because the base armor of the pet is garbage. So let me take these 2 off here. Let me go back out and come back in. If you look here, base health is 450, base shield is 600. Those are pretty respectable numbers. Base armor 150. That's not respectable. That is very disrespectable. And so if you put metal fiber on, that 150 goes to 525. That's still pretty damn garbage. That's only 63% damage reduction, which is, you might as well be nothing for Steel Path Endurance. So yeah, that's not an option. So we go with Enhanced Vitality because it's going to increase that 450 to 1,500. And we're going to go with Calculated Redirection because it's going to increase that 600 to over 2,000. You know, still not perfect for Steel Path Endurance. Your guy is still going to go down, but we have other mods for that. So let's continue on. Okay, Duplex Bond. Before I go over this, I want to explain. Our worm is going to use the Vergless. And when you're using a Sentinel with Vergless, Duplex Bond gets a lot of value. So, Duplex Bond. Companion will clone itself each time you expend 100 energy. This also includes channeled ability energy that is spent. Up to 3 clones. Clones live 30 seconds and cannot use abilities, and their kills have a 50% chance of dropping energy orbs. So you get these 3 little clones running around with their 3 little Verglesses, and because the Vergless actually does pretty damn good damage, even for a Sentinel weapon, that's a lot of extra damage that's running around the field with your little clones. They can't cast their ability, so you're not going to be getting more negates out of them. Only the main worm can cast negate, but it's still a lot of extra damage, and you could also look at it as sometimes giving you extra energy, but you don't really need energy on this build. Contagious Bond. When your companion kills an enemy afflicted with a status effect, 50% of the status effect spreads to other enemies within 9 meters. Max 100 stacks. Our worm with the Verglas is going to be producing hundreds of stacks of heat. So this will be transferring over 100 stacks of heat and viral. Well, not 100 stacks of viral, but you know what I'm saying. It's going to be transferring over 100 stacks almost every time he kills something. So Contagious Bond is very good. Then we go with 3 mods that I believe should be on every single Sentinel build, even Companion build, although Companions can't use Prime Regen. But every Sentinel build should always have these 3 mods. I feel like they should just be built into the pets at this point, but that is Primed Animal Instinct for Loot Radar and Enemy Radar. Vacuum to actually pick your loot up. Even me who has everything, I still want loot. I'm going to use Vacuum. And then Primed Regen for Sentinel recovery time, reduced by 35 seconds, and revives with 10 seconds of invulnerability. So no matter how well you think your worm is built, even with Enhanced Vitality and Redirection, he's still going to go down. And you need Primed Regen to make sure he gets back up super quick. So these just kind of stall, right? Like these 2 mods just stall so he doesn't go down immediately. But when he does go down, Primed Regen is going to bring him back up. Assault mode is going to make sure your pet actually attacks because we're using the Verglas. We actually want him to attack. Negate, we already went over. This is going to be removing the status effects from us. And this slot right here is optional. So Guardian boosts your shields when they run out. We don't really need this on our build. Our shield gate's going to work perfectly fine without this. So if you're using the Verglas, Fired Up is a really good mod. 5% heat damage on weapons per hit and stacks up to 100%. So 100% extra heat on your Verglas, which is going to increase your Verglas heat weighting, so you're going to get more heat procs. So Fired Up is an extremely good combo if you're using the Verglas on your Sentinel, which we are. I'm cheap and I don't want to reform of this, so I'm not going to use it, but you probably should use this over Guardian. You don't have to, though. You don't have to. You're going to do most of the damage yourself. Your pet's not going to do like all of the damage, but it probably is better than Guardian, but Guardian is still a decent pick too. Alrighty. And of course, use the Verglas. That's a little laser beam. Build it for heat. And that is how you build out Baruuk Prime for our build there. What we're going to do now is we're going to show this in 10 minutes of Steel Path gameplay and just show what it looks like and how it functions. All right, I'm on solo. I'm on Steel Path. We're going to do a 10-minute mod. So most of the gameplay is just going to be using the 1 and the 4, which is Larva. And if we were in multiplayer with a team, we would also be wanting to cast Lull to help support our team to take less damage. Because, of course, if enemies are asleep, they can't do damage. But because I'm by myself, I don't really need Lull because I'm basically invincible. So... all right, let's start this up here. Cast my 1. I'm going to make sure my 1 is always working. And then I'm just going to use Larva when I need it. I staggered myself. That's 1 point for Prime Sure-Footed. I'm going to purposely not ever use Prime Sure-Footed on here. Where's the, oh, okay, it's over here. I'm like, where's the area I'm supposed to be going to? I knew that shot was too close. I knew it was. I did it purposely. That's my story. This is a really good room for Larva. This is like the best room for Larva. I went back and forth though with ensnare. Ensnare's really good too. You just have to actually target a dude with ensnare, and I'd rather just target the floor. Or a wall. Where are these dudes at? Where are these spawns at? Oh, you know what? The clones. The clones are going out there and killing them. I'm like, why are these guys like in the other rooms like fighting? It's the damn attack of the clones, the little worm clones. So your main sentinel has to stay over your shoulder, but the clones don't. The clones are sentient. They have their own life that they live. Look at this guy. This little clone right here. He's living his own life. He's going to do his own thing. I was like, why are these guys coming to me? Because they're fighting the clones in the other room. And the clones are like stacking up friggin' heat and stuff. I really like Larva. My Nidus build that I play myself is also a max range Nidus build with Larva. So this is very similar, but I feel like the Baruuk is even better than my Nidus. So I might have to consider looking at my Nidus and maybe doing something different, because Baruuk plays Larva better than Nidus does, which is weird. That whole Grendel situation where everyone uses Nourish better than Grendel does. It's the same thing with Nidus. Everyone uses Larva better than Nidus does. Oh, sad times.
Cannot blame these creatures. They are being led by a false prophet, an impostor who knows not the secrets of the void.
Like I had an electric proc that got through. I don't know if you guys saw that. So my health pool kind of tanked it a little bit. So that's why I like to have a little bit of a health pool, because Worm's not perfect. You know, he lives his own life sometimes. He does his own stuff. He doesn't listen. And especially now he has children with his clones. He's got 3 kids running around doing their own thing. Damn, he really ain't going to listen. I don't even know where they are right now. They're probably in the other rooms. Let me see. Is there any in here? Yeah, there's one right here. Here he is. He's living his own life fighting in this room. All right, Malice. Malice is dangerous. He could make me down myself. Usually you want to melee Malice. Let me see. I'm going to bait him to put the mag bubble on me. I'm going to roll, and now it should be safe to shoot him.
Extraction is ready.
And stagger myself, of course. I want to take him out quickly, though. Otherwise, he will make me down myself. I think I'll still shield gate it, but I don't want to run the risk. That wasn't a self-stagger. I meant to do that. I meant to do the jump down from up there. Of course, definitely not a self-stagger. I think they're all up there. Let me throw this at the wall. So something to know about larva, and something that I learned when I played Nidus a lot, was that it has a duration, and so you would think that it's going to continually suck dudes up in that duration, but that is not true. It sucks dudes up when it initially hits, and that's it. So you do want to recast it very often. You don't want to go like max duration on larva. There's really no reason to go any duration on larva. But again, the way the ability looked, it would look like duration would make sense, but it really doesn't. Because the initial suck is the only thing that actually pulls dudes in. When it sits there, it's just going to continue to hold them. That's it. So I think this Baruuk build might be the new king of brain deadery. I feel like this is even more brain dead than the Revenant builds that we had out there. Because the Revenant builds, they have to actually like recast their Mesmer Shield once in a while. This build, I have actually forgotten I was in a mission and like have gone to go like pee or take a shit and been gone for like 5-10 minutes and came back and my dude was still sitting there like getting hit. I don't know how I maintain the energy. Maybe my Sentinel was killing things and I was just picking things up, but it happened. It happened. You're also pretty much free to do whatever you want with this build, except for the primary weapon. You do need a slow charging weapon. Other than that, you're pretty free to do like whatever the hell you want. Mania has Zephyr's Turbulence. And so you either have to melee Mania, or you have to use a weapon that has a large AoE. And luckily, we're the Brahma. Mania's gone. Shaboop, just like that. And we're almost at 10 minutes.
We will all share
That's it.
this bounty. Hold out as long as you
Let's roll back to the Orbiter. We got a little bit over 900 kills. Pretty decent. Pretty decent. And again, you might like the other bows too. You know, you might not like the Brahma. You maybe like the Harbuscus Cernos, the Nadaruk. Nadaruk's pretty sexy for punch through. Depending on the tile set, like if you get a Kuba Survival, ooh, that Nadaruk. That Nadaruk will do crazy there.
Your will was greater. This is good.
So I really like this build, though. I like it. I had initially started building Baruuk out as like the basic build that everyone does with the fists. And it was okay, but there was a lot of back and forth with it. And then when I kind of discovered this, who knows, maybe I'm not the first one to discover this. There's probably like 55 like builds like this on Overframe. But as far as I know, I am the first, right? I am the pioneer, but I am likely not. But if you guys liked the video, consider giving it a like. If you haven't subbed yet, consider subbing or tell me what I can do to earn your sub. And I hope you guys have an amazing day. All right, bye.